Hello everyone, this is Mr. Olson. Today guys, we're going to be talking about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So on Monday of this week, we started photosynthesis. We kind of related photosynthesis back to the carbon cycle, and you might have also heard the term respiration as we were also talking about the carbon cycle. So today we're going to start off with a little bit of review, just a little bit of photosynthesis. We're going to move into respiration, and then I'm going to show you guys a model that's really going to make up this whole head puzzle. So if you guys can take your notebooks out, let's start writing these things down. So we have photosynthesis, and this is going to be a fill in the blank. So it says plants breathe in carbon dioxide. Now, when we breathe in carbon dioxide through a plant, what's really happening is that stomata is opening and allowing for diffusion to occur. Now, when diffusion occurs, that is allowing CO2 into the plant through a passive transport. Now, plants absorb water from their roots. If you guys remember what type of transport moves water into the roots, this should be osmosis. Now, they use this energy from the sun to make ATP. Now, ATP, guys, just so you guys remember, is a form of energy. Now, this ATP is going to break apart the water and carbon dioxide molecules, and energy can be released when bonds are broken. Now, when that happens, that ATP is going to be used to form the bonds that hold together glucose. So, in photosynthesis, we have water, we have carbon dioxide, and our off products are going to be glucose and oxygen. Okay, so reactants, once again, reactants are water and CO2. Our products are going to be oxygen and glucose. Now, ATP is going to be part of this, guys. We're going to talk about ATP a little bit more as we keep moving through. Okay, so as we get moving on, what is ATP? Like, what does this stand for? What do we need to know about it? Realistically, ATP is something called adenosine triphosphate. Now, ATP is a chemical compound that cells would use to store energy or to release energy. So we have something called ATP, and then we're also going to add another word in that's something called ADP. So if you guys see this image right here, we have an adenine, we have in 3 phosphates. Now the bond between the second and third phosphates and an ATP is broken. This ATP converts to ADP, and then energy is released. Okay, so every time a singular bond is snapped or is broken, we're releasing energy. So what we're going to refer this to is like a full battery and a half charge battery. So our ADP, 2 phosphates, is a partially charged battery. Our ATP, our 3 phosphates, is a fully charged battery. Now, if you could take a wild guess, what does the D stand for? Hopefully, you got it meaning di. So adenine diphosphate. Now, di means 2, tri means 3. So adenine diphosphate is 2 phosphates. Adenosine triphosphate is 3 phosphates. So ATP is a full battery. ADP is a half charged battery, a partially charged battery. Okay, there's an exact ratio of how charged it is. It's just to kind of help you guys visualize what we're talking about. Now, with that being said, we're going to go into cellular respiration. So what do animals need for energy? What do we eat? Like, how do we get energy? How do cows get energy? How do other animals get energy? Take a second and think about it. Now, if your answer was that we have to eat food, or we have to eat carbohydrates, or we have to eat proteins, or we have to eat lipids, that's great. Okay? We have to eat organic molecules to get them in our body. Now, what do we breathe in? For most of us, we're hopefully breathing in oxygen. Are we breathing in other gases as well? Yes, but the one that helps us the most is oxygen. We need oxygen to live. We need oxygen to breathe. Okay, this is all going to kind of make sense. Just give me a second here. Okay, so we eat our carbohydrates. We breathe in our oxygen. These are the reactants. Okay, so let's look at this. Cellular respiration, our reactants is glucose and oxygen. Now, every time we exhale, we're breathing out CO2, we're breathing out water. We're also giving off energy. Now, this might look a little bit familiar, and I hope it does, okay? And I'm going to kind of explain why. So, here we have 2 equations. We have photosynthesis equation. We also have the cellular respiration equation. What you should notice here is that my reactants for my photosynthesis are now my products in my cellular respiration. My products in my photosynthesis are now my reactants in my cellular respiration. Guys, this should make sense. For the reason being is that we talked about the carbon cycle, and we knew that photosynthesis was part of that, which means it has to go somewhere around, meaning cellular respiration is the other back half of that in our small cycle in the carbon cycle. So we have CO2 plus H2O gives us glucose and oxygen when we do photosynthesis. Correct. Now, that is what a plant needs to do to create their own energy. Now, as humans, we have to get that energy from the plant. So we have to eat that glucose to get that energy. We still have to breathe oxygen for us to live. Now, every time we exhale, every time we do this chemical reaction, we exhale CO2 and we also exhale water. Okay. Now, CO2, guys, pretty hard to see. Water, we live in Minnesota. We should be able to identify this all the time. When it is cold outside and you go outside and you breathe and you go, you see smoke or fog come out of your mouth. Basically, what that is your air particles showing off that water and that water freezing. Okay, it's showing us that gaseous state, showing that water is actually there. Now, it also says that it gets energy. So cellular respiration gets energy. Now, risk what this is saying is that our body breaks down glucose and also uses that oxygen to make our bodies run. Okay, and we always are emitting energy and we're always showing energy as heat. Now, our body uses energy in other places, hence why we have like chemical reactions and we're able to move, able to talk to all those different pieces. But realistically, we're taking glucose, we're taking oxygen, and we're creating CO2 and H2O. Now, with that being said, though, we should probably look at what this looks like. So what I've built for you, so give me 1 second, I'll make this a little bit bigger. Oh, wrong button. Timeout. My bad. Okay, so what I built right here is a glucose. Okay, that's kind of hard to see, I understand. But in the middle here, we have our carbon ring. So we have carbon, 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 and carbon, and we also have our one embedded oxygen. And the outside, we still have a bunch of oxygens and hydrogens. If you counted this, we actually have 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens, giving us C6H12O6. Now, every one of these little wooden sticks here represents a bond. Now, every time we break a bond, what we're actually doing is releasing energy. So something like glucose has a lot of bonds. Okay, so if I go, boop, break it off, I actually release energy. If I break it off here, I actually release more energy. If I break it off here, I release more energy. Now, if you guys remember, matter is not created, nor is it destroyed. So this C6H12O6 can also make our waters and CO2s. And I'm going to do that for you, so give me 1 sec. So I took apart that glucose, guys, and I built 2 different models. Okay, I built an H2O, which is my 1 oxygen, my 2 hydrogens. I also built myself a CO2 molecule. Now, I understand you guys don't know exactly why there's double bonds here, there's the springs here. We're going to talk about that more as we keep moving forward, okay? But I'm just trying to show you, is I took that glucose model, I was able to make these 2 things. So let me pull myself to the side quick here. I took this molecule, this C6H12O6, and I was able to make this and this. Now remember, matter is not created nor destroyed. So we're going to be creating the same amount on our product side as our reactant side. We're not going to make any more atoms. The same amount of carbon I have on my reactant side should be the same amount of carbon I have on my reactants and my product side. I think I messed that up. Let me rephrase. The carbon I have on my reactant side should be the same amount of carbon I have on my product side. The same amount of hydrogen I have on my reactant side should be the same amount of hydrogen on my product side. Same thing with oxygen, okay? This is realistically cellular respiration. So when your teacher's stressed out to you on Monday, you need to understand photosynthesis and you need to know the equation. This is why. If you memorized this equation, let me make myself smaller. If you memorize this equation, all you're doing is writing it backwards, okay? So it's almost a 2-for-1. You memorize photosynthesis, you memorize cellular respiration, okay? Now let's move on just a little bit. Let's give you guys a couple more notes so you guys can have them down. There we go. So cellular respiration is consuming food molecules. So we're consuming carbohydrates, our fats, our proteins, and release chemical energy when the bonds are broken, okay? So every time we break bonds, we were releasing energy. You guys got that. Now, a form of aerobic respiration occurs in the presence of oxygen. Now, guys, we're going to go more into aerobic and anaerobic a little bit later this week. But remember, aerobic means with oxygen. So if you go for like a jog, that is an aerobic exercise because we're breathing during it, okay? So When oxygen is present, it's going to be called aerobic. Now, don't stress about that, guys. We're going to come back to that later this week when we start talking about fermentation. Okay. Now, who performs cellular respiration? A lot of us just think it's just humans. Or a lot of us just think it's just animals. Okay, that's not the truth. So all heterotrophs consume other organisms for energy. They do not make their own. So every type of heterotroph does cellular respiration. Now, every autotroph also does cellular respiration. Okay, so they make their own food or energy, correct. But to complete that cycle, to complete their carbon cycle, they still have to do cellular respiration, just like a heterotroph does. Now, it also says that prokaryotes do. And I know we haven't spent much time on prokaryotes. We're going to get that into Unit 4. But really what it's saying is that bacteria do cellular respiration. Now, realistically, this means that almost every living thing does cellular respiration. Okay? For the most part, that's going to stand true. Okay? Every living thing is going to do some form of cellular respiration. Okay? Whether that be a heterotroph, autotroph, or a prokaryote, we're going to have them do cellular respiration. Okay? Guys, if you have any questions about whatever we just talked about, please reach out to your teachers. Please ask. What your takeaway from today should be is you understand that photosynthesis is one equation and cellular respiration is just a flipped equation. You can understand that part, we're probably on a good piece. Okay. Now, if you guys are still getting confused about reactants and products, please make sure you understand that reactants are going to be on your left side and your products are going to be on your right side. Okay. As long as the arrow is pointing from left to right. So reactants are going to be what's going into the reaction. Products are going to be our product that's getting made. Okay. Other than that, guys, have a great day. Please reach out if you guys need anything. Talk to you later.